I think most journalists hate the prospect of all that participation because it challenges them, it threatens their jobs, it threatens their identity, their authority. It's a deeply, deeply disturbing and threatening thing. And, you know, there are legitimate arguments which say, look, we create this quite good stuff and we're trained to do it, and you'll get all this kind of useless blogging and kind of it won't be any good. And I think there are real issues about where we get quality from and how we fund it in future and things like that. But the future will be in this more open space, there's no doubt about it. When I became a journalist on the Financial Times, now a long time ago, no one asked me what my business model was. No one said, how do you expect to make money? Because it was obvious it was advertising and the cover price. And no one asked me, how do you think you're going to interact in forums, discussions with your readers, and what do you think your readers will do with what you write? Now it's virtually inescapable to do that, and so media is as we speak being transformed by that. And so media industries that used to be able to rely on commanding an audience and charging them a price can no longer do that, and that's a really fundamental change, and it's having a huge disruptive impact on those industries. Well, I suppose, broadly speaking, we're used to the idea that creativity comes from special people who've had special training, or they might be specially kind of creative and they might wear funny clothes and, you know, work in studios and labs and things like that. And creativity does come from those people, but increasingly, even amongst those people, it comes from networks, relationships, groups of people working together. And the big difference that potentially the web makes to our lives is that it spreads the tools to be creative much more widely, and it spreads the tools to connect with other people. And so the possibility of a sort of massively kind of parallel creative culture in which there are lots of cultural experiments going on of people sharing ideas and creating things, that's what we're now entering into, where creativity could be many to many, not just few to many. Can create more value by creating a sort of bigger funnel into a kind of traditional organisation. That's why X Factor in the UK is a perfect model of crowdsourcing, and it's very, very successful. But it can also work the other way, where you get people sharing information and ideas, and they create something that grows up and out, and that's the model of a lot of open source software, a lot of computer games, more social movements of one kind or another. And so those are much more many to many, and they grow out rather than coming in. But both those models now have a potency that they didn't have before. They're not the only way to do things, and they're not necessarily the best, and they won't all necessarily work, but they are now possible in a way that they weren't before, yeah. Nowhere near enough, no. Europe is still, too many parts of Europe are still hoping that the kind of new world will go away and that the old will survive, and Europe is in danger of just sort of slowly withering away in terms of its creativity and innovation as a source of the new, definitely. Europe has great strengths as a source of the old and the valuable, and a great heritage and culture, and still huge sources of learning, but its ability to creatively combine resources in virtually any field to then take opportunities and explore them is nowhere near as great as it should be. We're nowhere near as flexible and creative in Europe as we should be.